Hello Daily Drafters and welcome to the format follow-up video for Alchemy Horizons Baldur's Gate. While I'm sure we all had different experiences with this set, whether it be complete rejection, one draft and calling it quits, or warming up to the format over its life, it is now time to say goodbye in true daily draft fashion. What that means exactly is that in this video, I will provide you with color pair tier rankings followed by my top 10 takes on the format. If you have any desire to draft Alchemy Horizons Baldur's Gate again in the future, such as a flashback draft on Arena or at home with your friends, this will be a great video to reference to give you a quick reminder of how the format shook out and what to be looking for during your revisits. With that out of the way, let's dive into my tier rankings for the viable decks in the format. Starting with the only tier 4 deck on my list, we have Blue-Red. I never drafted Blue-Red in the entire life of the format, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that I don't think I ever played against a Blue-Red opponent in 19 drafts. This was billed as a Dragons deck, but there were no reasons to want to be this color pair. In Tier 3, we have the remaining blue decks in Green-Blue, Black-Blue, and White-Blue. These three decks were heavily carried by their supporting colors. White and black, respectively, were the only things that made Dimir and Azorius playable, and Green-Blue Dragons actually was able to come through as a successful theme every now and then. In Tier 2, we have Black-Green, Green-White, and Green-Red. These are the remaining green decks, and because there's such a steep drop-off between green and three other specific colors, as you'll hear about later, these decks couldn't quite compete as well with the best decks in the format. And finally, the Tier 1 decks in this format are Red-White, Red-Black, and Black-White. It's not common for there to be 3 decks in Tier 1, but as long as you were any combination of red, black, and white in this format, you were exactly where you wanted to be. I'll expand on why later, but these 3 colors complemented each other incredibly well and were fine-tuned winning machines. Now we'll go ahead and dive into my top 10 takes on the format as a whole. Number 10. This format is not the same as AFR. One of the skepticisms I had going into this format is that because it was billed as another Dungeons & Dragons set, and that about a third of the cards were straight reprints from Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, I was worried that this set was going to end up as bad as AFR was. And for reference, AFR is actually my second least favorite set release since the fall of 2018. Thankfully, this set feels enough different from AFR that it is not near as bad as the original set, although there are some negative aspects of AFR that creep into Baldur's Gate that we'll talk about in a bit. Number 9. Specialize seems incredibly complicated, but makes sense quickly. When this mechanic was revealed, the MTG community was in uproar, and honestly, rightfully so. If you thought transforming cards were confusing and difficult to keep track of because of all the reading, Specialize dwarfed that experience by allowing cards to transform into 5 different possible backsides. Were the first few drafts of this format rough when it comes to reading the cards? Absolutely, but as with any format, the more you play with these cards and mechanics, the more they begin to intuitively make sense in your brain, and things did get easier as a result. Number 8. Blue is laughably bad. Some content creators were championing the merits of blue, saying that although they agree that it was the worst color, it was still playable. I was not one of those content creators. I effectively hard avoided blue in this format because of how incredibly bad its commons are. Now, it is funny though, out of 19 drafts of HBG, I drafted blue 3 times, and in those drafts I ended up with a 68% winning percentage, but I just think I was incredibly lucky, and I would not at all recommend drafting blue if you're just coming back to the format for a draft or two. Number 7. The official daily draft color rankings. As mentioned, blue is in the farthest 5th place we've seen in several sets. In 4th, we have green. Jumping another large gap to 3rd, we find red. In 2nd is white, which is narrowly edged out by black in 1st. As proof, I was so drawn to black that I found myself drafting black in 13 of the 19 drafts on this channel. Number 6. This format is bomb heavy. Now, that's not necessarily to say that the format was dictated by the presence of these bombs, although in some cases it absolutely was. I'm looking at you, Lae'zel and Hourglass Coven. But there was just a large presence of a very, very good set of rares that you had to have an answer to survive in the format. But the good thing was that we were given the tools at Common to deal with some of these great rares, so they weren't entirely oppressive. Number 5. The official Daily Draft top commons in each color. In black, we have Sewer Plague, edging out what most might have thought would be Grim Bounty. In white, we have Blessed Hippogriff. In red, we have Dragon's Fire with Genasi Rabble-Rousers as an honorable mention. In green, we have Underseller Myconid. And in blue, I'm just not even going to award one. You don't deserve it, blue. Number 4. Mardu is where you want to be. I mentioned this in the deck tier rankings, but if you could have your two main colors be one of white, black, or red, you were one happy camper. I ended up in one of these combinations 12 out of 19 times in this format, and in those drafts, I had a 63% win percentage. If I ever left a draft being one of these color pairs, I was very rarely upset. Number 3. This format is quite aggressive. As red and white were among the best colors in the set, as mentioned before, this point would naturally come next. The red-white aggro deck, and for that matter the black-based Mardu aggressive decks, were very prevalent in the format. If you played the max number of games in any given draft of 9, you would expect to see one of these decks about 6 times or so, and you had to have a deck that was prepared to deal with the aggression being posed to you by your opponent. Number 2. Double Team is the most powerful mechanic in the set. Double Team provides exactly what aggressive decks usually struggle with the most: card advantage. Every Double Team card was just a 2-for-1 if you built your deck right. Attacking with Genasi Rabble-Rouser or a Soldiers of the Watch on turn 3 and trading it with their 2-drop was just the best feeling in the world because it effectively just goes right back into your hand while theirs doesn't. That type of card advantage built into aggressively slanted cards made these aggro decks be able to push the boundary of what is typically expected of them. Number 1. The barrier to entry is extremely high, but rewarding. If you go to draft this set having no knowledge of Alchemy as a format, you will have a rough time. If you go to draft this set not having read any of the cards ahead of time, you will also have a rough time. There are lots of aspects of this set that are tough to get over. However, once you cross that bridge, Alchemy Horizons Baldur's Gate is a set that is actually quite fun. Is it an all-timer? No. But you know what? It's better than Streets of New Capenna by a lot, and as bad as New Capenna was, I'm not sure people expected they'd be saying that by the end of Baldur's Gate. Thanks so much for tuning into the channel for the life of Alchemy Horizons Baldur's Gate, and if you didn't get to see many drafts or you just happened to discover this format follow-up video, go ahead and subscribe to the channel to get in nice and early on the next format. We'll be switching focus to Dominaria United later this week and into next week, so keep an eye out for that. Thanks again for being here, and I'll see you soon for more daily draft content.